Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you so much for joining me today. So today I'm going to be talking about some of the lessons that I've actually learned from teaching online. We're all going through, I think, different stages around the world. Some of us are teaching in person, some of us are teaching online. So for those of you who are continuing to teach online or just starting the term teaching online, I've got a few lessons that I'd love to share with you. So if you're interested in this topic, then please keep on watching. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about lessons learned from teaching online. So I'm just going to make myself a little bit smaller so that you can actually see the points that I'm going to go through. So let me move myself here. So the first tip that I have, the first lesson that I actually learned from teaching online was plan for 1/3 to a half the content that you normally do. So in the online virtual environment, of course, things take a little bit more time because it's so important that we actually give instructions in lots of different ways. It's got to be written, it's got to be verbal, and then hopefully you've got some kind of LMS where you're hosting a lot of your resources. So I would say, don't expect to get through the same amount of content as you normally do. The second lesson that I have is to use the chat function in Zoom, which I think many of us do already. I've attended so many webinars and lessons online with different educators around the world, and I can see that everyone utilizes that chat function. And it's lovely, I think, for people to have a parallel conversation. You can ask your students just to pop their name in the chat function as a quick and easy way to take attendance. The third lesson that I learned was to try and talk in 8 to 12-minute blocks and then ask your students to discuss or to reflect or to have some kind of visible thinking routine after your 8 to 12-minute block. So I think it's important to give students an opportunity to digest some of the information that you've been giving. And so to have frequent breakout rooms, maybe in 15-minute blocks. Another lesson that I learned was to give students time to socialize online and connect. And I know that we are very limited in terms of our lesson time and what we need to cover, but that social connection sometimes is missing in the online virtual environment. And so even if that's at the beginning of a class, just to give students a time to socialize either in breakout rooms and to get to know each other, especially if it's the beginning of the year, or just to connect when you start your lesson online, to connect with some kind of icebreaker to really get to know your students and for them to get to know you as well. The next lesson that I learned was to always ask for feedback from pairs or groups of students after they have discussed in the breakout room. So you know how sometimes we maybe will discuss an important idea and then we ask, does anyone have any questions or does anyone have any feedback? And you just get that awkward silence and crickets. And so I think it's important that we put our students into groups, ask them for their reflections, and then when they come back into the main room, perhaps ask them in groups or pairs for their reflections and to share with the rest of the group, because we know that we have safety in numbers. We don't want to be called out, and sometimes we don't want to be the only one that's answering a question in front of everybody. My next lesson is to use one place to link or embed all of your digital tools and resources. And most tools have embedding codes. For example, Padlet has embedding codes as well. And to encourage a one-stop shop so that your students are not going to 10 different platforms and 10 different links. Have a landing page, whether it's your Google Classroom or it's a WordPress or Wix site, and ensure that all your resources are in one place so that your students don't have to navigate to different places. My next lesson, of course, is to try and encourage everybody to have their video cameras on when possible. I know that sometimes this is not possible, but to encourage this as much as possible and use the virtual backgrounds to protect data for students and to protect their environment as well. But as much as possible to have that face-to-face connection, even if it's at the beginning of a lesson, so that you can actually identify your students and get to know them, especially if it's a new grade level. I know it's not always possible to have face-to-face video cameras on, but to encourage this as much as possible. My next lesson was a little bit unexpected. My next lesson was to continue to smile and laugh, even though you can't hear or see any of your students. So imagine that they are actually in front of you, they are listening, and you have to continue just to be yourself, to continue to smile and laugh and to make jokes and connect with your students, even though you might just see a lot of black boxes and hear nothing. I found that quite difficult in the beginning, talking to myself with no feedback and not hearing that buzz and that hum of learning in the classroom. And then finally, my last lesson was to be patient and kind to yourself in case technology gremlins visit. And they visit on a variety of different situations. So it's not just when your bandwidth or your Wi-Fi goes and your bandwidth goes, but it could be that one of my lessons was I didn't know that on a Google Doc, the limit was actually 100 people. And so I had 150 educators all trying to access one Google Doc, but technology gremlins decided, okay, we're not going to allow everyone to access that. So if there are technology issues or hitches, it's okay. Just be kind and patient to yourself and remind everybody that we're here together on this journey to learn together. So they're my 9 different lessons that I've learned from teaching online. I hope that you found them useful. If you have other lessons that you've learned from teaching online, please put it in the section below. I know that there are lots of schools around the world that are actually starting their academic year online, or other schools in, for example, in Australia, where they're continuing to teach online still. My heart really goes out to everybody. I hope that we can get through this time in history by just supporting each other. So thanks again for watching and joining me this week, and I really hope to see you next time. Bye.